Okay, ladies and gentlemen, about to begin our program. I'll use the mic. Today we're here to honor our ancestors. This is the day that in history they are calling Juneteenth. And we take a little bit of an exception to that. Actually, we take a lot of an exception to it, and we'll explain as we go along. The focus of our program is not to honor Lincoln or the Emancipation Proclamation, and we'll give you the details on it as we get into the program. The focus of our program is to recognize our ancestors who freed themselves. They took up arms and they freed themselves, and we're going to give you the documentation for that so that we can hold our heads up and stop getting teary-eyed when we look at a picture of Lincoln and calling him the great emancipator, which in fact he was not.
That's right. That's right.
We're going to open our program. I'm Kwasi Imhotep. This is another program from the Ancestral Path Cultural Action Group, and which is composed basically of me and the group. And that varies, but what we do is to try to bring historical truth to the fore. We are not a group that's concerned about what people say things are. We are more involved in what things actually were, to understand the truth of our ancestors and go forward with that truth as a mode for our living to help us survive as they survive, because our ancestors survived mightily. Once we know the history,
that's right,
we will see our ancestors were world beaters
to
the max.
Tell the truth.
And we can document that all the time, increasingly more and more every single day.
That's right.
We have some of the members of the group who will be participating as well. I want the group, those who are in the study group, stand up just quickly so people can recognize you. We also have a small contingent group in Hampton that we're in the process of reforming. So if you live in Hampton or on the peninsula, we can accommodate you as well. If you're interested in studying the lessons and history of your ancestors, there's no charge. We don't charge for the information. The information is free. Freely came to us. We set it free the same way.
That's right.
Okay, that's the focus of our group. And what else? There will be some flyers. We have a couple of flyers that we can pass out. Yes, would you please? Oh, one or two, yeah, let's pass it. We don't have enough, but if you need further information on the study group or what we do, here's my card. So just come up and take a card, and it has all of the contact information that you'll need. As in all of our programs from the beginning, when we came here in 1997, until now, well, practically all of the programs, we have always sought to recognize our ancestors when we begin our programs, because we are the African persuasion, which basically says that our ancestors are still living, and they're living in a different world. However, but life is life. And so we tend to recognize our ancestors for what they did for us. And in doing so, we know under the ancient Kemetic concepts of reciprocity that when we recognize our ancestors will in turn remember us and send blessings our way. We may not recognize the blessings all the time that we get. Some of those blessings may be coming directly from our ancestors. And as a part of our cultural awareness, we're always led in the ancestral libation by our Yoruba priests, Wene Usara Ayo Baba Orisha. disorganized everything. Everybody says.
Always coming out, Joe. Hotep!
Hotep.
C'est l'avianio! Bohoti Dane! Pingo Shallow! Yo! Peace! Everyone stand, please. Traditionally, from our ancient ancestors, those who came, Kush, Nubia, Monomotopolis, Ile-Ife, all up and down west coast of Africa. He's saying, beginning, may I have positions, mission from the ancestors, from the elders here to proceed. Yes. Before we begin, the Yorubas are a illustrious group of people from the west coast of Africa. The Yorubas are relatives and cousins to the Kemites. Prior to West Africa, they were in northeast Africa, which is known today as Egypt. And one of the languages that came out of that was the Yoruba language, Wolof. And some of the other languages that's in West Africa. Kiswahili, and this is a word that I love to give to people so they can get an understanding of one particular word, mama. It's not an English word, it's a Kiswahili word, which means illustrious mother, give respects to women. So when the brothers call you mama, it's not an insult. Ashe?
Ashe.
Ashe means so be it. So, we're going to begin here by pouring a libation. Libation deals with earth, because earth is a sacred entity, so is water. And we begin firstly by libation into the plant of the earth. And so that you get better understanding of dealing with the earth in the near future, because the world now has recognized the fact that they have to come back and give more respect to the earth, because the earth is a female energy.
That's right. Ashe.
Ame tutu, ane tutu,
Ashe.
ile tutu,
Ashe.
tutu la roye,
Ashe.
tutu bago baba Yesu, Yesu elegba, ako ele baba mi se oku. Ako tutu ni se baba mi se ako se popo se moyuba mo fe di fun se la ti a se re popo se okomi, obibi, omo se ale ala fe shisere, baba mi o. Ako baba mi se ako se ame tutu. May the waters be cool and refreshing. Ane tutu. May our roads and paths be cool and refreshing. Ile tutu. May a calm messenger proceed all our prayers. Oludumare, Mojuba, Bobo, Iku, Imbalesi. God, we give homage. We salute the ancestors that sit at your feet. Oludumare, Ibai Ibai Tonu. We give praise to the owner of existence. Iba, Oni Jo Oni. We call upon and give praise to the owner of this day. Iba She Oni Oje Oni. We call upon and give praise to the owner of this day, because God, the ancestors, let us awake today. Ashe?
Ashe.
Ashe?
Ashe.
Iba She Setura, Setura, Setura. We call upon and give praise to the messengers of all prayers. Iba She Ogun. We call upon and give praise to the Ogun, the path opener. Ashe?
Ashe.
We call upon and give praise to all the ancestors that precede the birth of those who came into this world. Ashe?
Ashe.
At this particular point in time, when everyone to gather hands together, we want this energy to flow. We want this energy to flow so we can attach these illustrious ancient ancestors and the illustrious ancestors in America, because, as you know, we are at war. Why do I say this? Because we are at war. You see what's happening all over the world. God has given his wrath upon all the negative energies that's coming up. What's happening down Orleans or New Orleans or Louisiana, what we used to say, Louisiana. And at this particular point in time, I want you to think about an illustrious ancestor in your family. Grandfather, aunt, mother, cousin, who gave good things to the world and helped you to be who you are today. Ashe. I want you to think also about those ancestors who helped us on the way to get us where we here are today. Ashe. So think hard, and when you leave here today, continuously to deal with those ancestors, because as it was previously said, prior to all the blessings that you get, you don't know where they come from sometimes. Those are those ancestors. And God Almighty, who's known by many names. Ashe. 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 We give praise to all those illustrious ancestors. We said, Fuminishe Areku, Fuminishe Owo, Fuminishe Ola, Fuminishe Gun, Fuminishe Imo, Fuminishe Akwan, Fuminishe Onje, Fuminishe Iwa, Fuminishe Susuro, Fuminishe Akbala, Fuminishe Asha, Fuminishe Omo, Okowino Birina, Ashe Re Lafni Shishe, Fuminishe Ile Odana, Hekwa Ashe. What we are saying, we're saying, Fuminishe Allah, give us peace and prosperity. Give us long life. Give us money. Give us honor. Give us victory. Give us knowledge. Give us wisdom. Give us food. Give us good character. Iwa epele, good character. Iwa epele, good character. We say, give us patience. Give us strength. Give us clothing, clothes. Give us, protect our children. Ashe? Ashe. Give us a good home. We said, Kosi ku, Kosi io, Kosi hala, Kosi ku, Kosi she, Kosi dana, Kosi bulu ku, Kosi fiti ku, Kosi ashenu, Kosi shishio, Kosi ojo, Kosi wahala, Kosi fiti ku, Kosi aleku, Kosi ashelu, Kosi olopa, Kosi ofo, Kosi ala owo, Kosi boko, ajabu. Ashe beniki oro. What we're saying here, we're saying, keep death away from us. Keep disease and sickness away from us. Keep us away from disease, keep us away from bold blindness, keep us away from sickness, keep away things that are not coming to us when we need help for money. Ashe. We said keep all legal complications away from us. Keep us away from trouble. Keep us away from bad news. Keep us for undeserving punishment. Ashe. Ashe. Keep us from unexpected happenings to us in our families. Ashe. Ashe. Keep away trouble from police and thugs. Police and thugs. Olo she, olo pa. Keep us away from curses. Keep away from poverty. Keep us away from bad things. May all these blessings come to us. Ashe. 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 Shishe dada kupuni she alafu shi ashe re baba mi she ko kupuni she Kwasi. Ashe.
Thank you.
Let's make sure they hear us.
I needed that myself. I had passed out. You know, it's good. It's good to get back to yourself and lose your inhibitions when it comes to your cultural heritage.
That's right. That's right.
It's always good. We had intended for us to sing the first stanza of Lift the Remorse and Sing, and it's still appropriate that we do it now. I passed out a few copies, so those who have the copies of the lyrics, please share with your neighbor, and let us stand, please, and sing the first stanza, what was called the Black National Anthem, Lift the Remorse, and sing.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. the listening skies. Let me down loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. They sing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
Thank you. Turn this program now over to your faithful MC, my brother.
Again, I'm gonna turn this mic off. My voice is loud enough. My big enough. As in keeping with African tradition, I asked the elders for their permission to speak. Sante Bible. First off, I'd like to thank everybody for coming. We usually don't get a good turnout when it comes to positive African things. When you talk about African Americans, we talk about Africa. That's how it goes. That's not here. So I appreciate all of y'all coming. Right now, we're going to have Brother Jason. Brother Jason. We're going to come up. The rubber people. We're going to have the rubber people come up and do some positive rap. Alright? We know rap gets a bad reputation, and in some cases rightfully so, because of some of the things they say and do to their own people. This is a positive group. So they're going to throw down some good rap. Alright?
Okay. I think she's good. Peace and blessings. How's everybody doing? We are the Rubber People of the Mighty Juniper's Elite Poetry Organization and the Mighty Mighty Zulu Nation. Chapter 30, Solar Flare. Oh yeah, he's in the Rubber People too. That's a Kier, everybody. Say peace.
Warm y'all up.
You sleep now, but the new day is on the way. You will soon awaken to begin to see what I say. I wasn't complicated, so your books were outdated. Your influences are faded, for you find them overrated. Take a deep breath, feel free to be yourself. Every day before was folklore on the shelf. You rise with the sun to realize you are the one to make change from what's begun, because your problems weigh a ton. Time and time again, many men tried to win, but many times again, men don't try and give in to what they don't feel right. In the heat of the night, the new day is when you make sure them dreams don't lose sight of what they're concealing is what we're revealing. Not to be appealing, strictly spiritual healing. Turn the page of the sage, the air age is upon you to understand what's true. Here's what you gotta do.
Here's what you gotta do.
Here's what you gotta do.
Well, here's what you gotta do.
You gotta be true to you.
Let's go with it,
Meditate, do some soul searching. Grab pen and pad, put back for relearning. It's everlasting life that we earn. The survival of the fittest are against us, so with us must go with it. Meditate, do some soul searching. Grab pen and pad, put back for relearning. It's everlasting life that we earn. The survival of the fittest are against us, so with us must go with it. Meditate, do some soul searching. Grab pen and pad, put back for relearning. learning. It's everlasting life that we earn. It's survival of the fittest. Are you against us or with it?
I hear the call, alarm clock is on the wall and it's going off. All I know is I can't stall cause it's in my chest and I must let it bust like lava. These hot topics, it's like Java, direct from the Father that's telling me to strive harder. It's about to be a lot more doing and less talking. Yo, my mind starts thoughts like a battery charging. These new joints is butter like we added some margarine. I'm yawning, waking up to a new dawning. One foot in front of the other, it's time to move forward. I gotta burn in my loins to flip like coins to make sure you get the point when I spit my joint. Show a new age Aquarius, the best kept secret is the best kept secret is best kept sacred. Peak game, gotta take the next step to make it. It's coming from my heart and it's impossible to fake it. It's coming from my heart and it's impossible to fake it. It's coming from my heart and it's impossible to fake it. Must go within, meditate, do some soul searching. Grab pen and pad, book bag for real. It's everlasting life that we earn. It's survival of the fittest. Are you against us or with us? Must go within, meditate, do some soul searching. Grab pen and pad, book bag for relearning. It's everlasting life that we earn. Survival of the fittest. Are you against us? One more time. Must go within, meditate, do some soul searching. Grab pen and pad, book bag for relearning. It's everlasting life that we earn. Hey, survival of the fittest. Are you against us or with us? With us, with us.
Yes, yes, yes. The Rubber People, Mighty Zulu Nation, Chapter 30. We are in the house of consciousness, correct? So we're going to keep it moving with a tune by the Queen over Can Omega entitled Black Folks. Yeah, ready for the next tune.
Hey, hey, hey. Yeah. Strap me in for the ride, I'm ready to experience the ultimate truth, culturally boosting my appearance with banners, waving them colors, blasting brothers with cannons and tackle like curious animals, furious patterns encrypted, codes and letters hitting secrets embedded within my flesh. The melanin protect me from devils that puncture, tough outer leather and just like armor it functions. With followers is as hollow as Halloween pumpkins, glimmer at night like wallow in mud, possessing the urge to strike back. All in my blood, if cats would learn to fight back, we could be free. I watch indigenous people thinking that could be me, just living socially, vocally expressing myself potently with poetry, knowing if I don't then there's no hope for me socially, vocally expressing myself potently with poetry, knowing if I don't then there's no hope. Yo, black folks, wake up, take off your makeup. We've been civilized, we've been rich, scientists, botanists, Egyptians, Moors, Sumerians, indigenous, Native American descendants, Asians, Hispanics, remember this, planet Earth's inhabitants, risk of electric shocks and don't open the box, the Ark of the Covenant locks, our oscillating sparks project, the key to the secret unk on my neck is static, electricity, melanin, ethnicity, electromagnetic energy, pulses, genetic ability to connect with dolphins protected by voltage, exoskeletal, Imhotep, ancestral man of all is medical, evolved principle, old concept and symbol, universal light within my chest get kindled bright, alchemists, I'm changing like base metals, exercising righteousness to break devils off, they all started fronting hard once they got involved, surrounded by flaming walls once they got engulfed, they souls was raped across fiery coals, violently tossed between cold and hotness. Cross-stitch space and time fabric, woven like a pearl stitch, knitted. Infant, orphans, organs, is stricken with illnesses that kill children at high percentage. Hyperventilating in this chamber of gas, stress from hypertension like a ninja blade when it stabs. Accurately aiming my stab to precisely the point when I jab. Behold fire in the sky, bringing flame to the Ave, yo, black folks. Wake up, take off your makeup. We've been civilized, we've been rich. Scientists, botanists, Egyptians, Moors, Sumerians, indigenous, Native American descendants, Asians, Hispanics, remember this, planet Earth's inhabitants, alright, black folks.
Alright. Thank y'all very much.
You know, what I like about this brother and his queen, and I'm gonna tell you, they have been performing on little programs, culture programs that we have done since we came here, since we moved to Suffolk anyway, about 6 years ago. They were in our first program we did in Suffolk. They came in with red, black, and green flag, talking about put down the gun, and I'm gonna tell you, everybody liked it. And what I particularly love about Jason and his queen, Sister Novocaine, is the family. This is a family group. This is not just two people standing up there, it's family. And you can see the product all around there. Okay, and we are pro-family. All of our events are family friendly. We for family. So give his family another hand.
See, back in the day, and I'm talking 80s, 70s, we had that kind of positive music. Our kids didn't have to grow up listening to the nonsense with the cuss words and all that, right? So I'm glad the Rubber people bringing that on back. Keep going, brother and sister. All right, next we're bringing up this sister who's been hard, and she's part of the Ancestral Past Study Group, and we're gonna give it up for Sister CJ with an African History Quiz. All right?
This is a quiz to see how much we know about ourselves.
All right.
Does everyone have one? Anybody need another one?
Can't hear you.
Okay, anybody need an ink pen? They want to answer it on, and circle their answer?
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna do this, we're gonna try to do this quick. What country has the largest black population outside of the continent of Africa? Okay, I got Brazil.
Brazil or the United States?
India.
Really? Wow.
India.
Somebody been studying.
Which text is the basis for all major religious texts today?
Book of Mormon, so
All right, the Book of Coming Forth by Day. True or false? Ancient Africans followed the matriarchal, the patriarchal, and the one of shared power of male and female.
True.
True.
Very good. Timbuktu is actually a city on the continent of Africa that once housed one of the greatest universities of that day.
True.
Very good. The first 10 pharaohs of Egypt reigned from Nubia, Egypt, Songhai, or Morocco.
Nubia.
Nubia. True or false? The oldest known pre-humans, symbols, mythology, religion, writings, language, all had their beginnings in Africa.
True.
Very good. The first dynasty of China was black. What was their name? The Chow,
Me.
the Ming, the Han, or the Shang?
Me.
All right. The city of Paris is named after which African goddess? Ma'at, Isis, Signet, or Hathor? Isis, very good. Which African queen was Europe named after? Cleopatra, Europa, Nefertari, or Amina? Europa. A lot of people don't know that. Paris and Europe were both named after Africans. The group of people now known as the Australian Aborigines were successfully defeated only after drugs were introduced, the missionaries arrived with the Bible and the cross, soldiers arrived with superior weapons, or poisoning the water supply.
Oh.
Okay, all those things did happen. What was the one thing that finally put the nail in the coffin? Wow. Okay, the group of people now known as the Australian Aborigines were successfully defeated only after what was the last thing that finally defeated them? Drugs were introduced, missionaries arrived with their Bible and their cross, soldiers arrived with superior weapons, or the poisoning of the water supply.
Missionaries arrived.
Poisoning of the water supply. They held out, and that was the only thing that finally defeated the Aborigines. These are some strong people. And if you've ever seen the Australian Aborigines on TV, they're people of strong color, very strong color. Those called, true or false, those called the great thinkers of Greece, to include Plato, Herodotus, and Pythagoras, were taught in the schools of Kemet, which is also the name of, Kemet is the name of Egypt. We know it's Kemet. Very good. The Moors brought education, the arts, domestication, agriculture, and civilization to Europe.
True.
Very good. I'm sorry. Try. All known as Pharaoh in Egypt were men.
False.
False. Do you know her name?
Hatshepsut.
All right. Mental slavery keeps a person away from knowledge and mastery of self.
True.
Very good. Nefertari was a most beautiful woman of her day that married for peace. Is that true or false? Is that true or false?
False. Pretty with the back on.
It is true. There was Ramesses II. Hundreds of thousands of skilled Africans were shipped to the Americas, where they worked without the profit for themselves.
True.
True. Think about the slaves. The slaves worked and they did not get any of that money for themselves. Ma'at, meaning truth, justice, balance, order, reciprocity, and righteousness, was the law of the land in ancient Kemet.
True.
True. Homer, the one who wrote the Odyssey, stated, in medical knowledge, Kemet leaves the rest of the world behind. True or false? True. Very good. If you want more, there is a website, blackconsciousness.com. Go to that website, you can learn some more. Attend our book study class, you'll learn a lot more also. All right. Thank you.
All right, one more time for Sister CJ. Let's see if they taught that kind of stuff in school, and more importantly, if we taught that at home,
Come on with it now.
we wouldn't be in the situation as a people. I'm talking individuals, I'm talking about as a people. All right, next what we're going to do is, first let me give you the background on this. My teacher right here, Brother Kwasi, and my friend, my elder, my teacher, my friend, called me up one day, well, he actually invited me to his house. And he told me he had an idea about Juneteenth and some other things. His brother's always on. Brother Kwasi's always on. And he started telling me about this thing that he wanted to do. That came to him in a dream, in a vision. Most of y'all that don't know, that's how we communicate with our ancestors.
Come on with it now.
And we don't go with what Freud and all the rest of these expert psychologists say dreams mean. To them they mean one thing, to us they mean something totally different. Alright? Our ancestors went to school for 40 years. They had to go to school for 40 years. 5 of those being silent, couldn't speak a word. That's real hard. I can't do that because I've talked to them. But anyway, brother told me about this idea he had that came to him from the ancestors, and he wanted to put it together. And as I said, he's a brother that makes things happen. So he has put it together. And it's called the Juneteenth is Misguided Lecture with the Mark Lincoln Ancestor Press Conference starring Ayala Jenkins. Who's going a couple miles. So let's give it up for Brother Kwasi, and please pay close attention to the truth. Brother Kwasi.
Okay, thank you, my brother. Najee. First, I'd like to introduce myself. This is a contact list. If you indicate, just put your name, whatever, on there. And that way we can contact you. You can contact us if there are any questions about what we do, or you want to become part of our study group or any of our functions. Okay, first of all, I want to say that as far as Juneteenth is concerned, the traditional rendition of Juneteenth, it took an effort on the part of those individuals and groups who came, especially to this area. I came here in 1997, and others were already here, but there was a group that came a few years later, and they basically introduced Juneteenth to this area, and I don't have anything but commended, praise and commendations, for their efforts, for their zeal, dedication, and attempting to bring an aspect of our history to our knowledge. They get an A for the effort. However, I take great exception, and I'll go through my documentation as I proceed. I take great exception to the format that most of the Juneteenth organizations use, not only here, in DC, New York, LA. They all basically tend to give Abraham Lincoln the traditional credit as being the so-called great emancipator of our enslaved ancestors. And they tend to give Lincoln this kind of credit without really even critically examining the basis of their beliefs. It's simply something that's passed on and been taught over and over again. The schools teach it, the parents teach it, grandma's got the picture of Lincoln in there, in the home. And so I understand this. But, our ancestors, actual Kwasi, some of you may know of, who is one of the teachers of ancient African history on the national scene, who himself was a student of Dr. Ben, revered Dr. Ben, for about 14 years, I believe he told me that he was Dr. Ben's student. In a private conversation a few years ago when I had brought Actual Kwasi here to speak, at my home we had him and some other people just after the event. We were just having a little social thing, and Actual Kwasi told me privately that he said, Kwasi, the ancestors really are looking for us to take a stand and to do something in terms of the kind of misinformation that is out here about us and our history. You see, we wouldn't have any knowledge of the ancestors if we didn't study the history. We wouldn't even know anything about what they did or what they did not do if we didn't pursue a course of study into the past.
Right.
A tree does not understand its root system. The fruit of the tree doesn't understand how it gets nourished. It does know that it can't disassociate itself from its roots if it expects to continue to live. And neither can we. If we begin to disassociate ourselves from our roots, then we perish. It's as simple as that. So I think what he was getting at, Actual Kwasi, was that at some point in time, we have to understand and to look back at our ancestors and with their guidance and help. Baba Orisa was up here doing ancestral libation. He wasn't doing that to some dead, buried images in the ground. He was doing that to living spirit world ancestors who still live. Okay? So what actual Kwasi was trying to get me to understand is that at some point in time, we've got to begin to look back to our ancestors.
Right.
We talk about Sankofa, that's what the Sankofa bird is doing. He's looking behind himself. Why? Not because he likes looking behind, because that's where his past is. That's where his history is.
See?
That's where he gets his guidance, so he knows which way to step forward. Because he's already looked behind to understand the mistakes that others made, so he's not going to step in the same hole that the others stepped in. So he's looking there for guidance, and then he can use that guidance to take his next step forward, not next step backwards, but next step forward. So actual Kwasi was trying to get me to understand that we need to begin to critically look back at our ancestors and to see if we can understand what it is that they were trying to convey to us. That the conventional historians, white and black, are distorting. And so with that kind of understanding, and through my teacher, Dr. Asa G. Hilliard III, who's now an ancestor, who taught me that document. Everything that you say, you ought to be able to document. Otherwise, it's just T-A-L-K, talk. And we all know what talk, right? Talk walks, right? Okay, so we're going to give you some documentation as to our position on Juneteenth. And in the process, we are going to expose our ancestors and their valiant fight for freedom. We're going to give you specific examples, and then you can draw your own conclusion about whether we are on the right path or whether we should have Lincoln's picture up here in this Juneteenth revealed program. So that's the basis of it. I need to get my reading glasses now because I want to read some of this information as well. This presentation, incidentally, is available. It's called Juneteenth is Misguided. It's an essay that I had written. This is what I'm presenting to you today. It's an essay that I had written. It is available if you want to purchase it. It's only $5. But it has all the documentation so that you don't need to guess. You don't need to make statements that are not substantiated, because everybody's talking different things about this Juneteenth. We need to understand true truth, not to understand a lot of the continuing lies that have already been told about it. We're not trying to cloud the issue. We're trying to clear the clouds.
That's right.
That's what we're about, clearing the issues, the obfuscation. First of all, our ancestors were taught that Juneteenth on June 19th, 1865, in the state of Texas, Juneteenth was supposed to have been a day to commemorate that date, which was supposed to represent the date that our enslaved ancestors in the state of Texas first learned about Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation. In other words, that's when they were the storyline that you hear at most Juneteenth programs is that's when they found out that they were indeed free. June 19, 1865, which is fully 2.5 years after Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation had been issued.
2 years?
2.5 years after it had been issued. It was issued January 1st, 1863. So in June 1865, is, according to the storyline, that's when our ancestors in Texas learned of it. Now, the pro-Juneteenth people will continually tell you that that's true. I say, if it is true, show me the numbers of our ancestors who, once they heard that they were supposedly free vis-a-vis Lincoln's proclamation, show me how many of them were able to walk off the so-called prison plantation.
Right.
How many actually were freed? Give me some statistics. Give me some numbers. Show me where the governor or the Texas state legislature acknowledged this proclamation and said, well, yes, Lincoln, you're right. You are free. Go home. Go where you want to. Show me. Because we know, according to a very courageous black writer and scholar, Lerone Bennett, who for years wrote for Ebony Magazine, was the editor of Ebony Magazine. In his book, Forced into Glory, Abraham Lincoln's White Dream, Lerone Bennett says that when the document, Emancipation Proclamation document, was issued in January 1st, 1863, that there were approximately 4 million people of African descent who were enslaved in this country. 1 year later, Lerone Bennett says, there were still approximately 4 million people of African descent who were enslaved. 1 year after Lincoln issued his document, there was still the same number of people who were classified as slaves in this country. So why didn't that document free them? Why were they still enslaved a year later? Because the document itself that he issued has no teeth, has no force and effect of law. It's a dud. We're going to read from the document. I want to pass out copies of this Emancipation Proclamation. You're going to read along with me. I am not going to stand up here and give you some information that you think that I'm making up. You're going to see it for yourself. Here are copies. I don't have copies for everyone, but please share. The first thing I want to pass out is a copy of the Governor of Virginia's recent proclamation, okay, in which he was attempting to get us to observe Confederate History Month in the state of Virginia. So he issues this proclamation. Now, what do we have to say about the legal concepts of proclamations? First of all, according to Black's Law Dictionary, which is one of the most revered and accepted legal law dictionaries in this country, all attorneys who know anything refer to Black's Law. Okay, Black's Law Dictionary defines a proclamation basically as an official statement, usually by the government. Nothing more, nothing less, but nothing more. It's a statement. It's a feel-good thing. It has no power. It cannot be enforced at all. So when Governor McDonald issued his proclamation recently, urging all Virginians to observe Confederate History Month, what effect did it have on you? Did you all do it? Could he make you do it? No, because it's only a proclamation. It's only a statement. As a matter of fact, if you want a proclamation issued, you can get one. You can call, write, or email your representative in the Congress and say, Senator so-and-so, my grandmother is turning 68 on December the 12th of this year. Would you please have a proclamation issued by the Congress for the observance of her birthday? And they want your votes, they'll do it. Why? Because they do it all the time.
That's right.
And what you'll get in the mail is a official proclamation issued by the United States Congress on official letterhead proclaiming your grandmother's birthday as a day and encouraging all of us to acknowledge it. But what does it do? Can your grandmother take this official proclamation into the grocery store and say, well, this is my day, give me free food, right? Can she go and say, well, listen, I'm not paying no taxes today. Oh, I got stopped by the police for running the red light. like, well, here's my proclamation. Today is my day. She couldn't do any of that. Why? Because it's on a piece of paper.
That's it.
It's only an official statement. It has no force and effect of law. That's what proclamations are. This is what Lincoln issued. Now, here is Lincoln's proclamation. Brother, pass out copies of that. We're going to read from this document, and we're going to show you that it has nothing, no teeth. It couldn't do anything. It could not, it would not, it did not free any of our enslaved ancestors. So why is it that we have black historians? I have friends who teach history at Norfolk State who are having a similar Juneteenth program today. And they are sitting around reading this document with tears in their eyes, with pictures of Lincoln talking about how great he was, the great emancipator. And they ought to know, and they have doctorates in history. I don't have a doctorate in anything. I may be working on one, but I ain't got them. But I'm gonna tell you this, I can read with understanding, and so can you. That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna read this document with understanding, and we're gonna see. I'm not gonna put words into the document at all. You're gonna see it for yourself. Now you have to understand, this Emancipation Proclamation that Lincoln issued was written by him. Anybody know what was his profession before he was elected president? He was an attorney, right? Here's a guy who knows the law, okay? He's not somebody who just putting words down on a piece of paper as the president. He understood the law. He understood how laws were made. He understood the mechanism of the Congress. He understood the mechanism of legislative enforcement. He understood all of those concepts when he wrote this document. So everything that we see in this document, I have to conclude, he really seriously meant to put it into the document because he signed the thing. And if he didn't want it in there, he shouldn't have signed it. That's the way I believe. And we do know that he signed it because he got his signature. Now, Jay, I need you to read, my brother.
No problem, bro.
Okay, and you all that have the copies of the document, please share it with your neighbor. We're going to find out what Lincoln was actually up to when he issued this Emancipation Proclamation document. Now, before he issued the document, he had written, Lincoln was to set the parameters of what was going on around that time of the history. Lincoln was in a war, okay? He was in a war representing the Union or the North against the South. The South had left the Union. Lincoln was getting criticized harshly in the North. That's where his stronghold was. He was getting criticized by the politicians who said he was ineffective. He wasn't moving forth in the war. He didn't know what he was doing. He was getting criticized heavily by the abolitionist movement, led by Frederick Douglass and others. He was getting looked at harshly by the foreign governments who were in trade with this country. They were in trade with this country for their own purposes, but they were definitely interested in the outcome of this war. They wanted to know, are my investments safe? That's basically what white people are concerned about anyway. My money safe that I invested in your country. So Lincoln was catching it from the North. And from the South, he was catching it because, first of all, he's in a war with the South. And he did not want to aggravate the Southern interest any more than he could.
That's right.
You see, he's caught in a quagmire. He's got the North giving him hell. He's got the South sitting there, hey, you can't take our enslaved Africans away from us. How you think we're going to pick this cotton? How do you think our agricultural production is going to prosper? How do you think we're going to gonna eat if you take away our people who feed us. That's essentially what we were doing. The
That's
people
right.
who clothe us and bathe us, who change their shitty diapers. How you gonna do that? So he was catching it on both ends. He was in the middle, and he's caught in the middle. He's got to find a way to placate both sides. He's got to placate the South. He's got to deal with the North. So what does he do? He sits down and he says, well, what I'm going to do is write a proclamation, an emancipation proclamation that's going to free these people, and that's going to get the abolitionists off my back in the North, and it's going to get the Southern people off my back, because I'm really not going to free them, but I'm acting like I am. So that's what this document does. It goes both ways. You know, it's like a two-edged sword. He's not really trying to do anything, just to save his butt. That's what politicians do. Politicians always look not to save you, they look to save themselves. They only look for the next election. That's their main concern, getting re-elected.
That's right.
And they'll do anything that he can to get re-elected. That's the nature of politics. Always has been the nature of politics. I didn't make the rules, I'm just telling you what they are. Read for me, brother.
Now, therefore, I, Abraham Lincoln, President of the United States, order and designate as the states and parts of states wherein the people thereof, respectively, are this day in rebellion against the United States.
Okay, hold right there, please. Did y'all understand what he read? That's fancy terminology for saying that he is addressing his proclamation of freedom for our enslaved ancestors to those states that were then in rebellion against the Union. Now, use your common sense, okay? Suppose I would issue today, I have done it, I've already done it. I issued a proclamation on the internet telling people that today we are proclaiming Honor Our Ancestors Day. I issued it. Now, who's obeying it? Nobody's obeying it really, unless they really want to, but nobody is compelled to obey it.
That's right.
Okay? Now, here this guy issues this document to those states that were then, as of the day that he wrote it, rebelling against the United States. So what does that mean? That they were rebelling. They use the terminology that they had seceded from the country, seceded from the Union, had left the Union. And what does that all mean? That means that in leaving the Union, they formed what was known as the CSA, the Confederate States of America. Essentially, they were a foreign country on American soil. They had their own president, Jefferson Davis. They had their own White House. Still stands in Richmond. This is what McDonald wants you to do. Go up to Richmond and pay some money to get into that Confederate White House.
That's right.
They had their own flag, which we still see today. They had their own currency, their own money. They had their own song. They had their own official seal. They had their own army. They had their own navy. They had control over 700,000 square miles of land. They had 13 million people in their jurisdiction, including approximately 4 million of our enslaved ancestors. They were a country within a country. Now, some people say, well, that wasn't legal. They couldn't do that. The hell with that, they did it. It doesn't matter to us whether it was legal or not, because our ancestors were still enslaved.
That's right.
Whether they were legal or whether they were illegal, our people were still picking that cotton. That's the point that we need to be concerned with. We're not going to get into this scholarly arguments like some of my compatriots do. Well, they couldn't secede from the Union. But listen to me. When America left and said, we will now be free from Britain.
See?
Did Britain say, oh no, y'all can't do that because that's not legal?
See?
Did America care?
No.
No. Because the essential fact is they had the power to do it, they were big enough to do it, and they damn well did it.
That's right.
And that's the same thing for these Confederate States of America. They had the power and they did it.
That's right.
So here comes Lincoln with his proclamation telling these Confederate States of America, you now free your enslaved Africans. And what do you think they said?
What they tell
This
us?
guy's crazy.
All right.
Seriously, what do you think Jefferson Davis said and General Robert E. Lee? This guy must be crazy. How is he going to tell us to free somebody where he doesn't have any authority to tell us anything anyway? If he had authority in our area, well, hell, we wouldn't be in rebellion anymore. They would have done their thing to us, right? Zapped us out.
That's right.
He had no authority, but he tried to do it. He's very serious when he put those words in there. I didn't put them in there. He put those words in there himself.
That's right.
And he says he's directing this to those states that are now in rebellion against the Union. And then he specifically read off all of the states that he was talking about so that people would not get confused. So where's this document? Where's the power of this document? First of all, he's trying to do something in areas where he cannot do it. Has no legal jurisdiction, no authority, no power to do anything in an area that was essentially another country, a foreign country with its own government and could back it up. Now, they could say you could not secede from the Union, you can't do that, that's illegal, but they sure couldn't do anything about it because they, the South, the CSA, had their own guns, and they were using them guns. This was the bloodiest war that America has ever been in. There was more American lives lost in the Civil War than any other war since then, including Iraq, including Afghanistan, including the so-called WW2 and WW1s and the rest of those WWs in which they're really not world wars because in those wars, so-called world wars, basically it was only 6 countries, basically European countries fighting against themselves and they're calling this a world war. And we buy into that world stuff. We not in no war, they in the war. Call it their war. It ain't our war, it's their damn war. That's gonna be the world war. Most of Africa won't even end it. Why are we concerned about it?
That's right. All right. Break it down, brother.
Go ahead, Kwasi.
Read on, brother.
Make it plain, brother. Make it plain. So these are the states that were in rebellion: Arkansas, Texas, Louisiana, except the parishes of St. Bernard, I guess it's McCoyman, Jefferson, St. John, St. Charles, St. James, Assumption, Terrebonne, La Fourchette, St. Mary, St. Martin, and Orleans, including the city of New Orleans, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia, except the 48 counties designated as West Virginia, and also the counties of Burton, Accomack, Northampton, Elizabeth City, York, Princess Anne, and Norfolk.
Norfolk?
Including the cities of Norfolk and Portsmouth.
Say what?
Including the cities of Norfolk and Portsmouth.
No, wait a minute now. Let me see if I can understand this, okay?
Talk to me.
Here is a president, okay, who says, I am going to free these enslaved Africans in, was Texas one of the states you read?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Wasn't that what Juneteenth started?
Yes, sir.
Well, how the hell could Juneteenth start if they were one of the states in the rebellion and they couldn't get free? How could Juneteenth start?
Makes sense, brother. Make it make sense.
And why is it then that in Norfolk, he's talking about this Norfolk that we in right now,
He's
right?
talking about this
Virginia.
right here,
Not Norfolk, England, right? This Norfolk, P-Town across the water. He says, I am accepting them from this proclamation. Why? Because he had no intention of freeing any of our enslaved ancestors anywhere.
Make it plain.
He could have freed our enslaved ancestors, your ancestors, who are here in Norfolk and Portsmouth. He could have, your great-great-grandfathers and grandmothers, he could have. Why could he? Because the Union Army at that time controlled Norfolk and Portsmouth.
Yes, sir. Make it plain.
It controlled Norfolk and Portsmouth, and by controlling Norfolk and Portsmouth, Lincoln, as the president of that union, had legal jurisdiction, and power, and authority right here in Norfolk and Portsmouth to free anybody he wanted to. But he says, I'm taking Norfolk and Portsmouth out of the coverage of this proclamation. I'm accepting them. Because he didn't intend to free anybody. Now, if he was really sincere in freeing someone, he would not, in the areas where he had authority, accept them.
That's right.
He would have included them,
That's right.
not accept them. So where is his mind? He's playing a game with us. And he played a game with our ancestors. See, our ancestors couldn't read this document. They didn't have access to this document. Most of them, I say 99.9% of them didn't have access to see these words.
That's right.
And what they were read, who knows what they were read?
That's right.
It all depends on the reader. Because the reader can read out things and read in things. You don't know what you're being read to as long as you don't have it in your hand. But I gave you a copy of the proclamation. You can see I ain't putting no words. I'm not making up anything. These are his words. So he chose deliberately not to free them where he had authority, and where he did not have authority, he tried to free them. That was the essence of this so-called proclamation. Now, how in the world can our scholars still stand around here swearing on the stack of Bibles that this thing is right? Can't be right when it's wrong. Can't be both ways. You got to look in your mind. You got to stay straddle the fence on this one.
Right.
I'm not going to let them straddle the fence.
Right.
Because our ancestors are calling us to stand up. Stand up for them. Okay, you're not standing up for them as long as we buy into this Lincoln lie.
That's right. That's right.
We're going to find out how ancestors got free, and it sure didn't come through this document, as you can see for yourself. Because we can read with understanding. We would not be attorneys and diplomats, and we may not be strategists and politicians and mathematicians, but we can read with understanding.
That's right.
Our mama taught us how to read. Your mama taught you how to read. She was the first teacher that you had.
Yes, sir.
All right, and she taught you right. That's what our people taught ourselves before there was school. We taught ourselves through our parents, and our parents taught us.
Right.
And our grandparents taught us.
Yes, sir.
So this is plain language. We can read it. Now, if he didn't intend this language to be read this way and understood this way, he shouldn't have wrote it that way.
That's right.
That's what I say. Since he was an attorney, I'm not. He ought to know how to write legalese.
That's right.
And this really isn't legalese because it's not legal. Now, he want to talk about whether states could secede from the Union. Was that legal? This document is not legalese because it has no force and effect of law. Nobody was obliged to obey it. No one. None of them on either side of the coin.
Right.
What did you say about once they accepted, brother?
All right. And which accepted parts are for the present left precisely as if this proclamation was not issued.
That's hard.
That's what he said.
That's hard.
Can you repeat that one more time?
I'll repeat that. Now, after he said all them states and cities and Norfolk and Portsmouth,
Right.
he said, and which accepted parts are, for the present, left precisely as if this proclamation were not issued.
Okay. Now let me read to you from the history. First of all, what Lincoln wrote in his letter to Horace Greeley, who was the editor of the New York Tribune in 2 years prior to the issuance of this document. Greeley was one of his harshest critics. Lincoln said, that, and these are his exact words. He says, my paramount object in this struggle is to save the Union and is not to save or destroy slavery. If I could save the Union without freeing any slaves, I would do it.
Those are his words.
He say, those are his words. You can find them. You can find them on the internet. Now, I'm not making this up. This is not a class in hypocrisy. We're here about truth and truth. Now let's go to what his Secretary of State, William Seward, said at the time after Lincoln had written this document and issued it. And William Seward, as Secretary of State, essentially he was what, third or fourth in the government or whatever. Okay, in other words, he was up there. And also by being Secretary of State, he was charged with the responsibility of foreign diplomacy, foreign affairs. Now, the southern states had left the Union, so they were essentially foreign country. This is William Seward's area of responsibility, but he didn't have anything to do. Lincoln took it away from him. He said, no, I'm gonna write this. This is mine. I'm gonna do this. Once it was written and issued, this is what Seward said about his proclamation, Emancipation Proclamation. He said, first of all, he proclaimed that the proclamation was hollow. Hollow, you know, it was a shell. There was no substance in there. Okay, you know, just like if you cut into an orange and ain't nothing in there, you know, well, ain't nothing in there, mama. Well, we're supposed to be some pulp in there, some fruit and stuff, but there ain't nothing in there, mama. No, it's just a shell. It's hollow. Okay, he says your document is hollow. This is his official statement. And he says it is meaningless. Has no meaning. It has no substance. It's a hollow, meaningless piece of paper. Now, I'm going to give you exactly what his quote was, his exact words, William Seward. He says that, he said, our sympathy with the slaves by emancipating the slaves where we cannot reach them and holding them in bondage where we can set them free. Those are his exact words. Here's a man in the Lincoln administration who's telling us document ain't no good. So why in the face of all this kind of evidence do we have people running around here talking about it? This is what sets you free. You go into Washington, D.C. and you go to the Lincoln Monument and you see the great emancipator chisel over him. Why? Based on what? Based on this document? This document has no teeth.
None.
As we've seen, it has no teeth. So if this document didn't have any teeth, then how did our ancestors get free? I mean, who freed them? Because this thing sure didn't free anybody.
That's right.
Who freed your ancestors from enslavement? How did they get free? Black power, black power, black power. Black power, black power, black power. That's how they got free. I'm gonna give you some specific examples of how they were able. This is one thing that the document did do. And I'll set the stage for you.
Bring it on.
The North was beginning to lose the war.
Lose it. That's right.
Okay? Now, even though at the time the population of America total, North and South, was approximately 27 million people. In the South, there was approximately 13 to 14 million, of which 4 million were our enslaved ancestors. In the North, despite that numerical number of citizens, not all of them, or enough of them, were battle fit.
That's right.
Okay? a lot of them were old women, old men, children, whatever. They were counted in the population, but they couldn't go to war.
Right.
So he was beginning, this is documented, the North was beginning to lose the war. They hadn't had a significant military victory in months. Lincoln needed manpower. Where was he going to get it from? From us.
Yes, sir.
So what he did was to insert in this same document language that allowed our enslaved ancestors to join his Union Army. Now let's picture this now.
Set it up.
Most of the enslaved ancestors were in the South. Most of them were in the states that were in rebellion. Your ancestors, despite what Lincoln is saying in this document about you can now join the army, couldn't just walk off the prison and join anything.
That's right.
Do you believe that you go? You see, that's why we call it prison. We change the context of things because we're trying to we're trying to look at this stuff through our eyes. We ain't looking at it through historians' eyes. They call these things plantation. That's because that was a planter. That was the white guy sat up there on the front porch sipping iced tea. He was the planter. He was planting cotton and he was planting corn and planting hulls and planting Negroes and everything else so that he could benefit himself. That's why they call it a plantation.
Yes, sir.
Okay? But from our perspective as enslaved people, it wasn't no plantation, or at least it was not a plantation or that we would call something as a agricultural business. It was a prison.
Yes, sir.
It was a prison farm. You want to get, you're fancy with this, a prison farm. Don't they have prison farms? They used to have prison farms all around this country.
Yes, sir.
Prison farms. Who was the most of the people in there? Us. Prison farms.
Yes, sir.
We couldn't walk off to join no Union Army to fight for our freedom. In order to join the Union Army, we had to escape, as our ancestors said. We had to run away. We had to actually put our lives in peril, leave our family, and join, run off. In other words, wade in the water.
Yes, sir.
Okay? Why were you wading in the water when you're escaping, going into the swamps? The Great Dismal Swamp, for instance. Okay? That covered your track. The water covers your tracks from the dogs that's pursuing you. Okay? That's what we were doing in order to do what? We got to be free. We're going to be free. We're going to run away here and we're going to find the Union Army and we're going to take up a weapon and we're going to come back and we're going to fight for our freedom. This is what your ancestors decided they were going to do. This is black power. This is what changed the course of the war. This is what freed your ancestors.
Sir.
Once your ancestors joined the Union Army, they began to win decisive battles. We're going to talk about some of those battles that your ancestors were in. Shooting weapons and discriminated against at the same time by the white soldiers who were trying to tell them that they were inferior. You belong in chains. This is what your ancestors want us to understand. That's why Ashford Creasy was trying to get across me. Your ancestors try to call out to you. Stand up for us. Stop telling these lies about us. Okay? Because in Africa, we didn't do this crap. We're going to do something wrong. We're going to do our things in our own way. In Africa, we were free and independent people. We civilized the world. So don't be coming over here enslaved and acting like we slaves.
That's right.
No, that's not to remember. He said slave is a state of mind. You're a slave, you make yourself a slave. And a slave is a derogatory, racist word. We don't even refer to our ancestors as a slave. I refer to them as African captives because that's in fact what they were. I don't care who captured them, whether white or black captured them. In all cases, they were African captives and they damn sure didn't come here on their own.
That's right.
They were captured and brought here.
Teach it, bro. Bring it on.
Black Paul freed us. Give you some of the battles that our ancestors were in Fort Pillow, along the near Memphis. Your ancestors were part of a regiment that fought decisive battles against the Southern Army, and that battle is classified in history as a massacre. a massacre of black troops, because there were approximately 300 black troops defending this fort. And there were approximately 200 white troops in the Union Army, for a total of about 500 Union troops. They were fighting against approximately 2,500 Confederate soldiers, 5 to 1. And in the course of the battle, the numbers predominated. Your ancestors were slaughtered. All 300 of them were basically slaughtered. And that battle is classified in history as a massacre. To this day, historians still argue about that battle. Fort Wagner, your ancestors were part of another regiment of black soldiers who fought against the Southern soldiers. And in that battle, they were able to defend, but they still faced all kinds of insurmountable odds. It was your ancestors who took Richmond. Richmond was then the capital of the Confederate States of America. It was your ancestors who marched into Richmond as Union troops and took the city of Richmond, the capital, forcing General Lee out of Richmond and put him on the run. That was the beginning of the end for the South. They ran Lee west in Virginia, westward. And he finally went so far west from Richmond to Danville, which became an interim capital. The capital then of the Confederate States had to be shifted along with, as they ran, as they were fleeing, your ancestors. So your ancestors then, in these specific battles, they took up the weapons themselves. They began to fight, and they were decisive in fighting for their freedom from enslavement. It was these kinds of battles and this black manpower that tipped the course of the war in the North's favor. Now, one of the things that historians like to argue about when they talk about the seceding states was that who recognized these states as being independent? Well, they recognized themselves, frankly. Britain was on the verge of recognizing them. But Britain was being checked by America. America told Britain, essentially, you recognize these guys, you're at war. Okay? You recognize them, it's like a declaration of war. Britain didn't want to go back in the war. It just ended the war, over 100 years ago with these guys. They certainly didn't want to get back into another war, shooting war with them. But they allowed the Confederate States representatives to come into Britain unofficially to negotiate unofficially. Hey, what do they say? What does the white power structure says? That, hey, we do most of our business on the golf course anyway, unofficially, right? So unofficially, the South was recognized, although it didn't have a diplomatic delegation from Britain or from France. But France was a sympathizer of the enslaved Africans. And we'll see further on that France was not only a sympathizer of them, they allowed them to support import weapons to the South side in order that they could fight against the North. So we have all of these kinds of factors that were going on at the time. But the crucial point that I want to get across here is that nobody's going to give you freedom. Our ancestors understood that, and they went to war, and they took freedom. It was with them and their decisive battles that caused the South to fall. Once the South fell, then they, in 1865 December, the Congress passed a 13th Amendment. And the 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution is supposedly called the Slavery Abolishment Amendment. That was the official end of enslavement of your ancestors in this country. That was almost 3 years after the Emancipation Proclamation. None of them were free. I'm not going to say none. There may have been 1 or 2 cases, one of which is Booker T. Washington. Booker T. Washington was liberated in June of 1865. Once Lee failed, once Richmond failed, okay, his people, his enslavers say, okay, well, you can go now, because he saw the writing on the wall, right? I mean, so we do have sporadic cases, but most of our ancestors were still working from can't see in the morning to can't see at night.
That's right.
And Harriet Tubman said, listen, 1 hour of slavery is next to hell. 1 hour of it is next to hell. Now, I don't care what you see and hear about people saying they could tolerate it. Of course they tolerated it because they survived.
That's right.
But it was no panacea. It was no pleasure walk. So that's one of the things that I take vehement disagreement with from people when our scholars begin to characterize our period of enslavement as some middle passage and all those romantic sounding damn terms that don't have no meaning. The stuff comes out of French. We're in the diaspora and all that crap. Listen, we ain't in no diaspora, we're in a wilderness. We ain't not in no middle passages just sailing to America. Come on, let's get real with what we're trying to do and what we understand about our ancestors, because our ancestors understood that so-called middle passage was hell.
That's right.
Was hell. And one of the ships that I documented, the so-called enslaved ships, they had the so-called slave deck, which was under the main deck where the air was. The so-called slave deck is about 3.5 feet tall. In other words, like this. So that means there's no standing up. Okay, there's no walking around. There's no air. You basically lying there on the floor next to your other enslaved fellow. You did your business right there. You tried to breathe right there. You tried to exist right there. That's what it was. The average voyage from Africa to here was 50 to 60 days in duration in those kind of conditions. And that was probably the best part of it, because once they get here, they definitely caught hell.
That's right.
24/7, 365. So we need to take exception to all of this romantic kind of talk when they're talking about what our ancestors went through, because we sitting here in our nice air-conditioned house and talk about what they went through, but we ain't been through it.
That's right.
So we got to give our ancestors some credit.
Yes, sir.
We had a skit that at this point in time we want to run through real quick. This is typically is a mock press conference that we were saying that Lincoln may have, that we want Lincoln to go through at the time that he issued his proclamation. Anaje Jenkins, Ayele Jenkins, Anaje's son, is going to play the part of Lincoln, and I'm going to play one of the enslaved ancestors. And we're going to go through the skit real quick, and then we'll conclude this with some more illuminating information about about the 13th Amendment, which I want Anaje to read, as well as about the so-called Statue of Liberty. A lot of things that people don't understand about the Statue of Liberty, and we have a brother here from New York, Daniel, okay? And we're going to go through some information that he probably don't even know, and most people don't know what the Statue of Liberty actually represents. But we got the pictures, and I'm going to show them to you as soon as we conclude this skit. This is Lincoln, Ayele Jenkins. Ayele is an actor. I'm not. Ayele is an actor. Is that right?
For so many years now, we have struggled.
Okay. I need to find my skit. Okay, thank you. Okay, this is a mock press conference.
Speak up loud.
I'm going to get to the mic when I say my part.
Step up to it.
For so many years,
The mock press conference link is announced in the document to the world. Okay.
for so many years now, we have struggled with the Negro problem, and it is dividing our union. But now, I have a way to stop the bloodshed, and we're killing each other over the Negro. And I now have a way to stop this bloodshed by setting the Negroes free. So I've issued the Emancipation Proclamation, setting all the Negroes free who are enslaved in this country. Any questions?
Now, I'm playing the role of one of our enslaved ancestors, so I will be talking in idiom. Okay, yeah, I don't know how they talk, but we're going to be not so educated people. We're going to talk like we talk. Mr. President Lincoln, in the quarters, old massa told us we still slaves, we still property, and that paper don't mean nothing. Is that paper a law or something?
Well, no, it's not a law.
Well, is it a regulation or executive order?
Neither of those.
Well, sir, what exactly is it? How does it set us here free from these here chains?
Actually, the piece of paper can't free you all by itself. I was hoping that your masters would read this presidential document and do right by your people. But since they didn't free you, I suppose you have to stay like you are.
No!
Well, couldn't you free us here in Norfolk? Anyway, couldn't you have done that?
The proclamation specifically exempts Norfolk from its coverage. We don't want to stir upon more trouble down here with your masters.
Well, sir, we won't get free this way, it looks like. So I suspect that we're gonna have to just put down these here cotton bins and cotton bales and go free ourselves and break these chains ourselves. That's what we's gonna do. Thank you, sir.